What happens when a guy from the city accidentally contacts a guy from the country? It's not what you think. They strike up a conversation and same difference is created. JD and Kory talk the whole gamut of life as they each see it through the prism of race. One is a 6'4" black man and one is a 5'4" white man. Tune in and find out which is which. Agree or disagree, they will make you think, strike emotional chords, and more. Stick around. You might just learn something. Welcome to Same Difference with your hosts, JD and Kory. We're sharing our stories and how our stories impacted our approach to life. We take our perspectives into having dialogue about real life topics. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a minute, and I am here with my tag team partner, Dr. JD Mast. Good doctor, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kory. How are you?
So far, so good. It is Sunday, March 3rd. I understand we have some people that we have to thank.
We do. We have to thank Kiana the Goddess, DJ FMI at VPR Radio, and shout out to Essie and the D and the Race for What team, and everybody that's listening and sending in questions. We're going to deal with some of the questions today. I shouldn't say deal with, but we're going to answer some of the questions today. We have two people that we have questions from to answer today. And then we are going to first give credence to an Iowa native and let you take the floor about what this special person means to Iowa, because she is doing her thing. And given how we finished the last episode talking about sports, let's pick this one up talking about sports and Miss Caitlin.
Thank you, JD. Today is the last regular season day for Iowa women's basketball. And for those of you who may be living under a rock, it's Caitlin Clark's last regular season home game. She's been in the media all over the place. That girl is bad. And I'm going to say she's a girl because I'm old enough to be her dad. And I just have to say, ball don't lie. Ball don't lie. The girl can flat out play. She can flat out play. And if you haven't, or if you're a hater, folks, jump back and watch her game. In one of our previous podcasts, I remember we talked about my dislike of Larry Bird and how stupid I was to not like Larry Bird when he was young and really good. I caught on to him at the last part of his greatness with the 92 Dream Team.
Yeah.
I had to jump back and check myself because ball don't lie. Get rid of any stereotypes that you might have and just recognize that ball is ball. Ball is skill, right? And if you can play the game, it doesn't matter what color you are. You know what I'm saying? Caitlin can ball. And it's a joy to watch her. She says the right things. She does the right things on court. Sometimes I find, though, that it is a challenge to be a Black Caitlin Clark fan, a Black Iowa sports fan, because I'm not supposed to root for the white girl.
Right.
Let me give you a couple reasons why I do. First of all, she's from Iowa. I'm born and raised here. 2, one of my dear friends, one of my longtime friends, had a house or lived on the same block, and his children knew her. So that's one degree of separation, right? There are friends that I have in the athletic department here at the University of Iowa who have interactions with her very regularly. Again, one degree of separation. And every time that I might see her around Iowa City, always humble, self-effacing, kind, not wrapped up in who she is. She is simply a college student who has a skill set, and I appreciate that. JD, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would be lying if I've said I've followed any sport other than the NBA recently, but I definitely see highlights and like long clips on YouTube, and she can flat out ball. And this goes back to some of the times when we've spoken about like black quarterbacks, or, you know, it's sort of the same applies in that we were rooting for black quarterbacks because they were in a way pigeonholed into something or excluded from just being a quarterback and often had to be identified by that. So root for her the same way. Like she can flat out ball, and um and it really goes to show us all, like when it comes down to this race thing, it's really how systemically we participate instead of just individually. Go be the best you can be, and she is being the best her she can be. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I like the way she talks trash because I'm a trash talking individual. I like, you know, the way that she accepts other people talking trash. And yeah, I think that she is going to be great for the WNBA. I'm happy to see women's basketball growing in the level of skill. Like those that complain about it not matching men's basketball right now. Well, go back to when men's basketball was, you know, Bob Cousy and them. They'd have the same skill set as Allen Iverson and whatnot. That didn't make them not great for their time.
Right.
And as it develops, it gets better and better and better and better. And so I think the same is true, and it's coming right now for women's sports. And the fact that she is just a flat out baller, no matter what, is a great thing.
I want to jump back to that trash talk conversation. I think in the 94 feet, you can talk trash.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's done, squashed. And I've seen that sportsmanship with a lot of women's players. On the floor, they're going at each other hammer and tongs. Game's over, good game. I appreciate the fact, and I admittedly, I'm not listening to every single press conference of every single women's basketball player in the country. What I have noticed about Caitlin is this: win or lose, she compliments the other team, the players, the other team coaches, the arena, and their fan base. If you're paying homage to the folks that you've either won or you've either beaten or lost to, that's respect.
Right.
And I see respect in her game, in her post-game interviews. Now, as soon as she's done giving respect, she's going to talk about her teammates and her coaches that allow her to do the things that she does, right? I just appreciate that. And the media, I used to dislike saying the media because I thought at one time when I was younger that the media was a somewhat apathetic / benign entity. It's not. Media is all about getting clicks, and it has created a racial element in this that I don't like, because it sets up the paradigm that you can't be black and like Caitlin Clark, or you shouldn't be black and like Caitlin Clark, or if you do, you're somehow selling out. Stop. Stop. I hadn't noticed this. I hadn't noticed the media manipulation until I stepped back. And actually, since we've done more of these conversations from the Same Difference podcast, folks, that I'm still a black man in America who appreciates an Iowan, another native Iowan, playing ball who happens to be white for my alma mater, the University of Iowa. There's nothing illogical or nonlinear about me supporting my team, my colors, and someone who's playing for our squad. But yet, there is a suggestion that, hey, this isn't kosher. We have to stop playing that. We have to stop buying into that narrative. We can do better, because I think we have to appeal to doing better based on the love of the game. There's a couple aspects of that. One, as I said before, ball don't lie. The ball, the way a sport is done, the standard of excellence is colorblind, right? If you run a certain speed, no matter what color you are, that's excellence. If you are the best passer, the best scorer, the best assist person, that's excellence. That's a numerical excellence that is colorblind. If you achieve those numbers, boom, play the dadgum game. Accept greatness as it is.
Right.
Instead, moving goalposts, trash talk about someone's not really very good. No, just I understand that's human nature.
But it's also it's the extremities of the bell curve too, and they just get pushed by the need for clicks, and like most of us really don't care. Most folks aren't rooting for somebody because of their skin, unless there's some contextual circumstances around that. I mean, like one of my favorite clips to watch when I'm scrolling through the YouTube shorts, and it keeps coming up for me, obviously, because I watch it every time, is Jeff Teague on his podcast, which I've never watched, but I watched some of the clips because they're good sound bites, and him talking to Wesley Matthews, who played with Luka in his first year. And in their first game against Dallas, when in Luka's first year, Jeff Teague was like, "You're going to let this white boy, handle the ball the whole time?" And Wesley Matthews was like, "That mother cold," and walked away. And Jeff said, I had to say, "Oh, shoot. Okay, let me look at this." And yep, he was right. He's cold. Like, cold is cold.
That doesn't mean I have to like him personality-wise. I don't know the guy. But respect is given, or respect should be given, especially when it's due. And what Caitlin's doing night in, night out is worthy of people's respect. You may not like her because the way her facial features, you may not like her because she beat your team. You may not like her for whatever reason.
She said, "You can't see me."
She said that to our strength and conditioning coach, not to Haley Van Lith. But the joy of watching her do things is it's outstanding. It's transcendent. Because let's make a baseline argument. Every woman on that court, and I'm going to say this for every person playing Division I sports and even scholarship sports, no matter what you are, what level you are, you're talented enough to be playing. And especially on Division I, there's a talent level there.
Right.
You can do some things, and to see someone excel shows that person is that much better.
Yeah, now, just appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reminded, I'm going to use a former Boston Celtic guy named Brian Scalabrine. And people used to trash talk Scalabrine because he didn't get in. And sometimes when he did get in, better ball players would roast him. And he said, "Look, to all you fans, all those people who are ridiculing me, I am closer to LeBron than you are to me." And he tested that by going to some gyms and playing. And he roasted all those cats who were at the YMCA or at this open gym because he was that much better.
Right.
And if you see LeBron make somebody fool or look foolish, or Luka or Jokic or Embiid, any of these cats, Devin Booker, you see these cats roasting another NBA player, you have to understand that's a talent gap. And that talent gap, if they come to a regular gym, shoot, that dude's not going to miss a shot all night. And you can't stop him. When we are on our couches and say, "Oh, he's a buster." No. In to be a professional athlete, he is at or above the minimum standard for that sport. And here's the other thing. We are below that minimum standard.
Without a doubt.
So today, Caitlin and the Hawkeyes play The Ohio State University in an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm looking forward to watching the ball game. I'm repping my Iowa colors, got my Iowa t-shirt on, and I'm looking forward to a great game. She's 18 points away from breaking Pete Maravich's scoring record. I'm going to let greatness do what greatness does.
So Iowa's colors, is that black and yellow or black and gold?
Black and gold. Black and old gold. That's what they call it.
That's the U City colors. So that brings us together. And if we're
also, you spent a whole year at The Ohio State University.
I did spend a whole year at The Ohio State University, and I am a picker and chooser of when I'm a Buckeye.
Well played, sir. Well played. So it's going to be a great game, and no matter what happens, I get to spend 2 or so hours watching greatness at work.
And, you know, for all intents and purposes, this was a great weekend for basketball. LeBron breaks 40,000 points scored, and Caitlin Clark, you know, takes down the scoring record of all of NCAA basketball.
Well, just Division I, because yeah, you're right. I think it is for all Division I. Well, it's definitely Division I men and women. I'm not sure. There's so many records. Yeah. This is again something that's painful. Before Title IX was adopted, that was bringing women's sports under the NCAA jurisdiction, there was the AIAW,
right,
and that was for women's sports. And scoring records the scoring records need to be pulled in under the NCAA umbrella, and they haven't. But coaching, some records have been brought in, and it's this hodgepodge of accuracy and record keeping. They definitely have men's sports down pat, but women were an afterthought. And it's hard to believe that 51 years later, here we are, and we don't have them all under the same roof. It's something that needs to be rectified.
And you're just the guy to do it.
Oh, thanks. You're a charmer today, my friend.
So, as I was bringing up the colors of our school, I thought it could be an interesting segue. We have some fan mail, my friend.
Let's hear it.
We had an email as well as some others, and I'll get to as many as we can, from a Cheryl Blackley. And so Cheryl says that in listening to the first episode, we kind of briefly talked about how we met and how we developed it. Did we talk about our differences? Kind of wants to know a little bit more about the prep and the decision, as they put it, in not a normal cast, but gives more insightful look at the backgrounds of the origins of the podcast. Like, you know, a little deeper as you were thinking about this, as we were coming together, kind of what your thoughts. Like we've said before, we have not, and purposely done so. We even, recently still kind of say, well, we should talk about this time in our life. We do not talk about that time in our life beforehand. We just say, oh, I have an interesting story from back when. I have an interesting story. We are purposely getting to know each other on this. And to me, choosing to do it that way was strategic, because I felt like it's going to be the most authentic way we could do it. I am much better for myself at just kind of speaking off the cuff than trying to remember how I said something. And so that becomes, more authentic to me. I wanted to our base to get to know us as we were getting to know each other. And, I have stories to tell that I didn't want anybody, including you, to go, maybe not, or I want to tell my stories and I want you to tell your stories. And so uh, I just thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn what a Black man growing up in such, like, it's even different than growing up in kind of a white school in a city, because you still get to go home to a community that has a larger, Black population than what you would have at Iowa City. So just being in that seemed very interesting to me.
I agree. The aspect that you and I don't know each other and we're not scripting this, aside from discussing what the subject matter of a particular podcast is, breeds the authenticity. I mean, these are real and raw and unedited. It helps us with credibility, and I believe that our listeners are learning to trust us as human beings. It's not Dr. JD Mass, expert, Kory, expert. No, it's just by this time, you should be, I mean, I think we've done a good enough job so that whenever we're having conversations, it feels like you are sitting at a high top in a sports bar with us, eating wings and having a beer or something, just humanizing it. Or in JD's case, tofu wings and milk.
And my water unit from behind me.
Yeah, something so that you feel like, hey, I'm having a conversation, or I'm listening to a conversation between two guys who have no pretense between them, and they're just being open and real. And a conversation like that, if you want to dig into the history, I'll retell the history. I had just won a Moth Grand Slam, and I posted it on LinkedIn. And because I posted it on LinkedIn, that allows people to comment on my achievement. One guy says, congratulations. Hey, I've moved to Florida. And I'm asking, who is this person? I must have met him in some way, shape, or form. And I respond back, ooh, Florida. What's that looking like? And then I look at his LinkedIn profile, and JD is doing anti-racism work. I write back and say, I'm interested in hearing what it is that you do and how you're doing it. Let's talk. We end up calling each other and sharing each other. We end up talking with each other and sharing some hopes and dreams based on what we've done, what our pasts were. And then we talked about this overlap. We both had an idea that a podcast was in our future. We just hadn't found the right vehicle or the right partner. And JD has his aspect of who I was and why he needed to connect. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I thought you were a different Corey May, one from a very different place of East St. Louis, and doing great work. And he and I actually had talked about doing a podcast before, and the pandemic made him very busy in his line of trauma therapy, for sure, right? And of course, trauma therapy was very much needed in the times of the pandemic. And so we've sort of stayed in touch, but at a distance. And I thought I hadn't heard from him in a while. And definitely, you have on a small screen of the phone and seeing a profile picture, you have a very similar look to a king. And so I sent my shout out. And once you wanted to know more, I went, that doesn't sound right. And I really opened up the profile and went, oh, that's because this isn't the same person. Let's see where this goes. And, lots of ideas are ideas. It takes work and intention and put ideas together and really make them come to fruition. And I'm glad to be a part of this. It's everything I had hoped it would be, and even a better experience for just my personal life being a part of it.
I agree. I agree. This has made such a big difference because we get to talk about those aspects of life. We get to talk about race, and JD is able to hold me accountable in ways that many others can't, and I'm able to hold him accountable in ways that others can't. And the cool thing is our life perspectives, we see similar issues happening from different perspectives. And here's again the other point: we're not talking in sound bites. So if I say something about an interaction with the police, I don't get from JD, well, you clearly must have done something wrong because of this. No, I recognize your humanity, Kory. That would have been a tough situation. I don't know how I would have handled that. Or on the other side, I can see where me being a white male got me this reaction as opposed to you being a black male getting that reaction. That makes a difference in terms of the conversations that we continually have with each other. I hope that answers the question. So we ended up, this was just a case of serendipity. It happened, we connected, we decided to move forward, and that's how Same Difference Podcast has continued to evolve.
So we have a couple of other folks that have asked some questions, and they've actually asked more questions now that I'm looking back. One of them is, well, let me just say, we have more questions from Cheryl Blackley and a few questions from a Trey Goodrum.
Let's jump to Trey for a second. Let's hear a different voice for a hot second.
Yeah, so Trey said he would love to hear more, and I know Trey. I worked with Trey to try and get his company off the ground, and it's still fighting for positioning out there in the digital distribution world. It's called On Fire. He said, I would love to hear more about the class systems that you both experience, especially because you're both educated, and also in dating women outside your race. Cheryl asked about us dating women and how that affected others, how that impacted, how we behaved in society when we dated outside of our race. So that seems to be a topic that we can get into.
Everybody wants to know the tea, my friend. All the tea.
Yes. Well, I don't think they want to know the bedroom side of it, but I think definitely they want to know how we were, impacted by society, how society, how we behaved, what were our feelings when we were out kind of in the world, and our approach to it, even going over, to the houses. And I know we've touched on some of this at different times. You more so than I, because I haven't gotten into my dating life too much yet.
Well, as you talked about being a Black person in when you talked about what your curiosity with me was, that you wanted to hear about some things. What's it like to be a Black person in a area, white school, white ecosystem? Well, what it is and what it does is you find that you are attracted to what you see.
For sure.
Because that's what's there. There weren't that many Black girls at my high school, and most of the Black girls that were in my high school were friends. And at the same time, just because they were there didn't mean they were attracted to you, nor did it mean that you were attracted to them. That's an assumption that isn't fair that just because someone is black, you're automatically attracted to them, or we wouldn't have that same standard for white people, that just because they were white automatically you're attracted to them. So yeah, it was just, you dated who you became attracted to, or at least you tried to date. I didn't necessarily, again, I didn't date until college. Just didn't date. I don't know where to guide this conversation.
So it's more about like when you went out on a date, did you get a lot of looks? Was it uncomfortable in any, settings and bars and in restaurants and walking down the streets, and
okay,
were you
so
nervous for it?
In high school, for the big events like homecoming and prom and things like that, I would go out in groups of friends. And there was my friend Rich, who happened to be black. One year it was the four of us, Rich, myself, another black woman, and another black woman, all went out as a group of friends, and we all looked good. We all look great, as a matter of fact. We're fantastic looking. But we've just all been close to each other. I don't know whether anything's have changed such that now dating would be an option. I don't know. But we would be in groups because there was always safety in numbers, right? And not that I felt that there was always going to be a sense of imminent danger, but always safety in numbers. I was always taught that you go out by yourself. You always go out with at least one other person, if not two or three other people, and things would be pretty safe. And that was regardless of whether I was with black people or white people. You just go out in numbers. For homecoming and prom, usually nobody's paying any attention because you're dressed up in a tuxedo. If you're in a tuxedo, everybody knows what it is. No, and you're in the groups, and then you see tables of your friends at the same restaurant. Everybody's all done up. Everybody you get that cursory look of like, oh, look, kids are having prom or kids are having homecoming. And then I'm going to go back and finish eating my T-bone steak. Nobody's paying any attention.
As you got older and were on that one-on-one date in Iowa City with white women, did you get looks from the community?
No, not so much in terms of
it looks like you're the one that went out with Kory.
I can neither confirm nor deny that last one, but again, it's knowing where you go. There's places that you just wouldn't go. I wouldn't go to a country western bar, but I might go to a downtown club where the athletes hung out, because I knew a bunch of athletes, and that ran the gamut of men and women, black, white, Latino,
athletics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go hang out at a place like that, everybody's cool.
Yeah.
Everybody's cool. You might see a black women's basketball player dancing with a white football player. And nobody's batting an eye. Everybody's like, hey, we're just getting down here. We're having fun.
Right.
And that vibe of acceptance was pretty cool. As I would, again, if I'm going out on a date with a black woman here in Iowa City, it's like, again, some safety in numbers. If we do it in a group. That was when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, well, we can just, the two of us go out. I have no problems with that. The further you got out of Iowa City itself, that would be the time when you're starting to pay attention to like, what's the vibe here? What's the vibe here? I'm not sure that I like the vibe. Maybe this isn't where we need to be. 20 minutes outside here, some of the attitudes are less.
You get in the back seat. Now let me drive Miss Daisy for a moment.
it hasn't gotten to that point, but there are a few times when I was like, well, all right now, Miss Daisy.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Let me grab your bags. Get us out of here.
Yeah, you do what you need to do sometimes to
Right.
survive. But
Yeah.
yeah, once you recognize that where the safe places are, it's
Right.
you're living kind of like the Green Book to Negro.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I get that. I also like when I would date. It's funny. My friend who is teaching at WashU, who I just went and spoke with our class, she brought it up that she and I went to the Luther Vandross concert together. She was trying to have me buy the tickets because she couldn't get her boyfriend to go at the time, who I was friends with. I couldn't get my girlfriend to go at the time. So I said, at worst case scenario, I'd buy one and we'd just go as friends. She was not used to being out with a white man in public.
Right.
And this was at a majority Black, the arena was full of majority of Black folks. And so I'm used to that. I'm used to being the only white guy, so much so that I just stopped caring about other people looking. So I stopped paying attention to other people looking. She was well aware. She said that in her class. Like, she asked me afterwards, "Did you see how many people were staring at us?" And I was like, "Nah, I was looking at En Vogue and then watching the women react to Luther." So I was not cognizant of that as much, and maybe I'm a little naive in that sense at times and feel safer than I need to be, but that's typically been how it's been. I'll give you a great story from a meeting. The thing, I had just started dating Shavella. Shavella is Steven's mom, and it was the first Christmas, and we met in November, and I went to her family's place for Christmas. It was Grandma's house. And Grandma's a wild one. Grandma's a gunslinging wild woman, little petite, I mean, super slim, petite, trash talking, Laker loving fan, right?
Love her
and
already.
over there, and she's telling everybody, don't say nothing if you can't say nothing good about the Lakers. So I sit there quietly. And then another of Grandma's granddaughters come in, and it's one of Chevella's cousins, and she's dating she's married to a white man, and he's there. And so Grandma, at some point, she's like, "You're not going to say nothing?" And I said, "Ma'am, you said I couldn't talk if I'm not going to say anything good unless I'm going to say something good about the Lakers. So I'm honoring what you said. I'm being quiet." So she said, "Oh, you're not a Laker fan?" She started talking trash. I started talking a little back. She was like, "Oh, okay, I like you." I was like, "Yeah, I ain't scared of you." "You ain't scared of me?" Literally, her and my relationship was, when I came through the door of her house, she would put her dukes up and we would play box, like shadow. And I mean, it was hilarious. And I mean, there was a film that Chavella did at one point of us, and it looked like Aunt Esther and
Fred.
Fred Sanford, and I'm over here doing like this and like that, and we're just outside. And one time she chased me out. We got to the point where we had to elevate it each time. We got pots and pans, and one time she chased me out the house with this knife. Now she was like, 10 feet behind me, and we were just having a good time. But the neighbors were like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" And this is in South Central LA.
The visuals of that must have been priceless.
Yes. So, I'm comfortable in that setting, and I know that I can. Whereas with Tracy's mom, my daughter's mother, their parents, her mom is, or has since retired, but a decently high upper management at Verizon, and her aunt the same. And then her other aunt and uncle were a little more, or a little less corporate in their tone and interaction with me, and I got along much better with them. Although I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't get along with Tracy's mom and aunt as well, but I was a little more militant in my sort of anti-racism perspective than they were at times. Right. And but you know, I remember talking to Tracy, and she didn't want to introduce me to her dad's brother, who she was like, because he's militant and he's not going to like me dating a white guy. And I was like, well, I don't like you dating a white guy. Like, I'm against that. And she was so confused. And so I was like, introduce me. I promise you, he's going to like me. But that never did happen. But I was like, yeah, I feel the same way he does. You shouldn't be dating white guys.
Though the thing that I heard from your story was the people were allowing you to be you, and they embraced you on who you were.
Yes, absolutely.
It wasn't the all white people. It was, I'm going to focus on JD and see if JD gets down with us.
Yeah. At Chavella's house, the husband of the other one said, "Whoo, I'm so glad he's here." Because he was like, I'm tired of taking this, because he wasn't as part of the culture as I was, or you know, and so right. So he was definitely glad I could take some and absorb some of that for him.
Well, and to our listeners, again, Blackness is not a negative culture. Blackness is a positive culture. And one of the things that we're going to continue to do is uplift the culture, right?
Yeah.
So what we talk about when we talk about our interactions, those are just some interactions where white culture and black culture have met and there has been some frustration. There are lots of interactions where black culture just simply is, and it is a wonderful thing in which to be immersed, right?
I think
go ahead.
The easiest way to put that is Black power has meant an uplifting of Black culture.
Right.
White power has not always meant that. And until we come to a grasp of what that means, it's it's something that internally conflicts us. Because to us, when we hear Black power, and I won't say to all of us, but to many, that idea of pro-Black means that you're anti-white, and that's not how it means. That's our culture to have something necessarily have to have an antagonistic perspective because you have a protagonistic perspective.
Right.
No,
right.
That's the competition that develops the word and term race. That is engraved in our culture. And so, you know, we have to identify that Black culture doesn't mean that. And so that is the beauty that we should really just start embracing. And so we can have white culture, if we want to maintain a level of culture around whiteness, that we can have it mean something more positive. But we have to be able to embrace other cultures much better to be able to do that.
Well, implicit to that Black power, white power thing, been anytime white power has been invoked, it has been a tool of oppression.
It has been, yeah.
And so Black power hasn't done that. Of whenever Black power is invoked, it's the projection that we as Black people would do to white people what white people have done to Black people. And that's a recognition that the scales haven't been equal.
It's not only that, but it's also false. Because we've been waiting on that shit for 400 years, and maybe we still feel like we just haven't given you the opportunity to have the strength to do so. But it's really a false, and that's the beauty of Black culture. Like, you've been able to absorb all of this and still just, hey man, let's stop all this silly shit, right? Like I say, more so than needing a Black friend, we need a Black grandma. We need that. Hey, seriously, we need that Black love. Like, come on in, baby. Come on, just sit still. Sit right here. We're gonna take good care of you.
Right.
Don't get up though. Don't get up. Watch. Just sit right here. You done enough. Thank you, baby. Come on. Grandma gonna feed you. Grandma gonna love you. Don't get out of line.
Right. And that love is you make me think about both of my grandmothers and how safe and protected I always felt as a child.
Yeah.
I felt cared for. I felt heard. I felt seen when I acted correctly. And don't get me wrong, I get my tail paddled if I misbehaved, but I definitely was loved.
And so, how did where was class playing a role in a city like Iowa City? I mean, for me, in U City, that's one of the sort of beautiful things about it, but also a representation of a more discouraging factor. We had a definite upper class, and that was majority white. And my parents, it was, if you did it even based on geography, because it was set up that way, as segregation is a natural thing, weaponizing it is what we do. But we were in sort of that upper middle class. In comparison to my friends, I mean, it was a much different class setting. I knew the impact of having money beyond just having whiteness that I had access to growing up.
Well, I think, class was always evident. There were the wealthy folks, and you could see their houses. They were huge and beautiful. And in a university town, again, doctors, lawyers, professors, they all were at this certain level. And then there was middle class folks who lived well, but class wasn't so much a thing. I guess I was probably more naive than anything. Poorer folks lived in a trailer park south of town, but we didn't have any quote unquote ghettos in Iowa City. We didn't have rough spots and all. It was a very middle class, largely white town. We were middle class, and we definitely were middle class, especially while my dad was alive. When dad died, there was loss of an income, and my mom had to step into being the breadwinner, and that was difficult insofar as watching your parent be the sole breadwinner and working her way through school because she got her AA degree in food service management, great grades, took care of us, but at the same time, it wasn't the same level. These were not the same levels of disposable income or anything like that you might have had with two incomes.
Right.
But we never were hungry. We never were in a position where everything was where we were at risk of losing everything. There was none of that. It was just, there was food on the table. I had clothes on my back, a roof overhead, hot water, cold water. I could bathe. Things were good.
Yeah.
Things were good.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was very intentional about making sure that I never saw class that I had the privilege of being born into from an economic standpoint as a measuring stick of good or bad or better than or worse than as a human. And so because of that, he intentionally took me to volunteer at homeless shelters. He intentionally took me to, places. My mother, spoke passionately about, in healthcare, the disparities from a just being able to receive care standpoint. And, going back to, yes, they were hired servitude. We went to their homes in their neighborhoods and saw their families, and were grateful for them inviting us into their homes as much as we invited them into ours outside of the work relationship. And so the class thing was and all of it has to be the change that we all want to see in the world. Whatever you want to see, it has to be intentional. It has to be worked on consistently, intentionally.
Right.
And that is what my parents were examples of for me. And so I'm eternally grateful for that.
Agreed. When you brought back something, I remembered you said that your parents took you to volunteer in different places and do things. I get it. When I was divorced and my kids would come to town, especially over Christmas, I made sure that we would go and volunteer at the free lunch program on Christmas Eve so that my kids would understand. On Christmas Eve, you're going to get presents and things like that. We still have our work to do to recognize that there are people in this world who do not have as much as we do. And even
Right.
if you are complaining about how little you think you have, you still have a lot. And sharing that with the kids was one of those things of, Dad, do we really have to do this? To Dad, thanks for having done this. Now, that wasn't an instantaneous thing. It was one of those things that happens over time where we start to appreciate, like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
I get it. And when they got older, to teenagers and things like that, I was like, thanks.
Well, sir, this is a good place to end it. I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger for a question from Trey for next time. And that is, what were we doing and how was the O.J. Simpson trial and verdict impactful during our time? And that fits in for me at St. Louis U. And we will talk about that time in our life, because whether you like it or not, that was a historical U.S. moment in time.
Oh, yes, sir. It was that early 90s. That was a bit, man. That was a big minute. That was a big minute. So, folks,
Shout out to Cheryl and Trey. We have more questions from both of them, and we will get to what we can in the future episodes. But thank you for participating. For the rest of you, send us an email, samedifferencebroadcast@gmail.com. Check out the website, samedifference.life. And keep on tuning in, and even reach out to us through our Facebook, Instagram, TikToks, as we're getting ramped up to start really showing some clips here and ramping up our promotions. So appreciate you all.
Thank you, Doctor. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Go ahead and share it with your friends. Contact us. JD told you how to do it. Make sure you do.
There you go. Kory, I know you got to get the face paint on for today's game and get the whole outfit going.
Oh, brother, I got to stretch my hamstrings because this is going to be a ball game and I'm going to be yelling at my television. Whoo! Well, hopefully the next time that we talk, I will have good results and good news for you. And we'll answer those questions from all of our listeners. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one.
Same Difference podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of Same Difference. We hope this journey through unique connections and diverse perspectives has left you with fresh insights and a broader understanding of the world we share.
We're humbled by your support and enthusiasm for the incredible stories and discussions we've shared. And remember, our mission is to foster critical thinking, embrace new perspectives, and spark conversations that bring us closer to an equitable world.
So, if you've enjoyed our podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps us reach even more listeners.
And if you have a story to share or a topic you'd like us to explore, don't hesitate to get in touch. We're always looking for new voices and fresh perspectives to feature on Same Difference.
Until next time, remember that our shared humanity is our most powerful asset, and by working together, we can bring about positive change.
Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep making a difference. Thank you for being a part of Same Difference.
Take care, everyone. See you in the next episode.